Chapter 45 Council Meeting Irava Toravan. But I didn't kill my father. That my people would even think that has haunted me for months now. I felt the pain, the pain of his last dying breath today. A gift and a curse from Caleb. I do my best to put that aside, to ignore everything outside of what I'm here to do, and forge on. What I'm building today is my father's legacy, and now it will be mine too. My father, I say, and cough past the crack in my voice. The thoughts coming back, no matter how much I try to push them down. The taste of his scream. The knowledge that is eating apart my insides that my mother did this. My mother. It should have been as ludicrous a thought that she could harm my father as that I could. But it's not. Caleb saw what he saw, and I felt what I felt. I try again, because I have to. If I can't shove the thoughts away, I must push through them. My father sought to give more power to the people, to create a healthier society, where every person has a voice. It's my intention to honor his legacy by doing just that. I watch as expressions darken, grow grim or angry. These people who've counted power as a given, who are so enamored with their political power that they disdain the magical powers if they touch their own bloodlines. Even though, as Voltaire said, many of them are hiding magical bloodlines too. It's an illusion, their inherent power. The aging Baron Nemoran is the first to rise, and I was sure he'd be among the first, as much as he'd opposed my father's policies before. And doesn't he recognize, too, that his ability to oppose my father at all was a gift my father gave to him, too? My father formed this council at the start of his rule, saying that he shouldn't have the sole say over what happens in the kingdom, that it's better and wiser by far to have many voices heard, not just one. And now we're about to take another step. This is outrageous. Sire, I understand wanting to give the peasants better lives. Of course we all wish to give them better lives. As if he's talking about cattle, not people. Another noble rises from her place at her table. Lady Seema, the ends of her braids clicking softly together as she draws herself up. I agree with Nemoran. For once, this isn't something we can do. The low-born masses are irresponsible, uneducated, and cannot be trusted with any decision that affects the kingdom. My heart sinks. I'd been hoping for, counting on even, Lady Seema's neutrality. She's been outspoken about the fair treatment of the peasants and better conditions for the artisan and merchant classes for years. I glance at my mother, and that's a mistake. Her face is outwardly impassive, as it often is, but she's seething. I know the signs. Her eyes are pinpoints of sharp light from the torches on the walls, her glare aimed at me. I grit the edge of the lectern, for a moment, just a moment, glaring back. My mother has no say in the future of this kingdom. She's already done so much damage. So much. I want to abandon the lectern and forge through the crowd and pull my mother up and demand to know why. Why would she ever even consider killing my father, her husband? Why? I do know why. And it's why I'm here today. I make myself turn away from her, brace myself as I sweep my gaze around me, This change will benefit all of us, I say. If the people are uneducated, then we'll build schools, universities. This isn't something that will happen immediately, but over time. It took us time to transition to a rule by council, and now we're doing well with that. Our economy was thriving until the death of my father, and it can thrive again. Think about how Barella will fare when we're known for our universities, for the richness of knowledge and invention. We can train more mages even. There are many self-trained mages among the peasants who could greatly benefit us all. We can thrive again. I thought that's why you were marrying a foreign princess, Baron Nemeron says. My breath hitches. I don't want to think about that now. Not now, and derail my momentum. And he is certainly trying to derail my momentum. Yes, I say, that is one step to secure peace on our borders and prosperous relations with our neighboring kingdoms. And what will she think of this? The Baron presses. This Princess of Galenda, how will this be keeping the treaty if she comes to be queen of a nation with hobbled power? If she finds herself barely better than a peasant? I shift my weight, shift back again. No, this is not how I wanted this to go. And with everything else burning up inside me, I have to work hard to keep my voice even. That's not what I'm proposing, I say, measuring out the words. Merely that we let everyone in Barella have more say in their own lives. If you think that's what you're doing here, you're naive, Your Majesty. I stare at Nemeron in shock. I'm still his king. Do I really have that little regard in the eyes of my people? In the eyes of the nobility? Has their obeying me and bowing to me been entirely a sham? I look around again and don't see any sympathetic faces. I see people with mouths drawn tight, shoulders stiff, hands clenched. I see glares. I do not see support. But surely there must be some support in this crowd? My father certainly hadn't thought he was alone in his views. Even Count Valterre, conservative as he is, wrote his support for my father from his convalescence. That's one of the reasons I think this can work. I am wearing a crown. I feel the weight of the solid gold band around my head. I don't wear it every day, but I put it on today before leaving my study, knowing I'd need it here. Should I have worn the heavier crown I use for ceremonies instead? Was that the price of their respect? But I fear even that wouldn't make these people see me as their king. Something is wrong. I feel it with my weaver senses as Toravan speaks. A subtle and growing wrongness. Not quite like the unreality weavings, but the feel of the weaving is similar. A bending under of reality, a warping, an abomination. I tense, just as the pompous baron calls Toravan naive. Toravan tenses too. Can he feel what I'm feeling? Or is he only reacting to the baron's words? Valterre eases closer to me, but he doesn't say anything. He looks like he wants to, but he's not willing to break the silence that's fallen in the wake of the baron's insult. Everyone's waiting to see what the king will do, except perhaps Master Aldrich. I widen my senses as far as I can, looking for what's amiss. What's going on that I can feel in my gut, but not quite see? Master Aldrich's brows are drawn, his eyes scanning the room, but I see nothing around him. No signs that he's weaving anything. His eyes meet mine and narrow. I twitch my fingers and touch the threads of reality just around him, and I know he'll sense it. Master Aldrich stiffens, turning his full attention to me. And I feel the light touch of his magic on the threads around me too. But I still don't feel any signs that he's actively weaving. And yet I still sense the weaving of someone, this wrongness, whatever it is. I swallow, and dread clawing up my throat. Look to Nikolai, and it's there, like the afterglow of sunlight when looking away from the light, like a whisper almost heard after a dream. Nikolai's eyes are hooded, focused somewhere beside the king, but not on him. He's still, not moving, not even his hands, but I can sense his subtle pulling of reality all the same. And what is he weaving? It's nothing showy, not like what he's attempted every time he's put people in danger, though I know in my bones that what he's doing now will hardly be less dangerous. No, it will be more. I know that, even as I frantically try to see the threads he's pulling, and can't. Not quite. And if he is weaving like this, in a way I've never known before, gods, he's the weaver, not Master Aldrich. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and God's help that I can correct my mistake in time. Nikolai is the one who wove the unreality in the royal bedchambers. His touch on reality now feels similar, feels corrupted, and like no weaving I've ever felt before. I still can't see a thread to unravel this weaving now, and that's making panic claw up my throat. No, I can't be too late. I can't be too weak. He can't be that strong. How was I so wrong? I've known Nikolai is a strong weaver, but in everything he's shown, he's been brash and incompetent. Or was that on purpose? Or is he just less competent at the weaving that I know how to do, and much more skilled at whatever he's doing now? I'm hardly paying attention to what the nobles and the king are saying, and jump when Torovin shouts, "This is the path forward, not repression. This is the path my father saw, and he died for that." The gut-churning buzz of Nikolai's dark weaving intensifies. I take a step forward, because this is not going to be the day the king dies for this ideal too.